So the birds are swooping in front of my patio window. What they do is they get into a big cluster and then they dive. They kind of like skydive. And so it was making me think about what kind of birds they were. So I looked it up, and they're actually sparrows. I had no idea. I had no idea what they are, but that kind of gave me the idea to make a video about this. And the reason why is because I had been reading an article, and it was about sparrows, and it was in China back in the day. And we're talking, I mean, we're talking 1908, something like that, right? So it's just interesting to see how far we've come, and how interrelated we are as a species with the other species in our world, birds and animals and things like that. And so, we're interconnected, and I truly, truly believe this. So I kind of wrote down some notes about it. So it's in 1958, the communist regime, or the communist government of the People's Republic of China, okay? Well, the first president, he was speaking about the sparrows, and he was saying that there was a problem with the sparrows because he believed that birds are animals of capitalism. Like, seriously, seriously. And that's basically what he was saying. And so what he wanted to do is he wanted to get rid of the sparrows. He wanted to get rid of the animals that were creating problems for them. Okay, so he wanted to just eradicate them. So there's a thing called the butterfly effect, which is really, really interesting to read about, because they say that the flapping of a butterfly's wings, okay, can cause a hurricane in another part of the world. I don't know how true that is, but that's called the butterfly effect, okay? And that's how interrelated we are, interconnected we are to other species in our big world that we live in, okay? So um, what it says is that this effect reached biblical dimensions in China in the mid 20th century, okay? But with sparrows, so the butterfly effect with the sparrows, there was such an overabundance of sparrows in the Republic of China back in those days, in the mid 20th century, that it was creating that butterfly effect. And so what the president did is so I'm trying to get the camera, just, I don't know. Anyway, so what he did is he passed a law that allowed citizens to kill sparrows in abundance, right? I mean, he actually passed a law to kill sparrows, like really, seriously. Okay. So in the 1960s, okay, which is my era when I was born, China's population was 600 million. So 600 million, and he passed a law that you should kill a sparrow if you've seen it. 600 million people killing sparrows, think about it. So soon that sparrow population was basically exterminated. And what they were saying is that there was 4.5 kilos of grain that were being eaten by the sparrows. So basically what they were saying is that the sparrows were eating the food that was meant for the population. So they wanted to get rid of the sparrows, okay? So if they killed the sparrows, okay, for each million sparrows that they killed, it would lead, this is their ideology, this was their belief, like just really out there. So what they were predicting is that if you killed 1 million sparrows, okay, it would leave free food for 60,000 Chinese citizens, okay? So then there was this campaign. There was campaign, and they called this campaign the Campaign of the Four Plagues. And they considered the plagues to be mosquitoes, flies, rodents, and sparrows, right? So they thought they were going to get rid of all those pests that were basically eating the grains that were meant for the citizens of the Republic of China, okay? So China wanted to be an industrial power, okay? And so they made this great leap forward to increase cereal production and industrialization of the country, right? And those grains, they needed those grains to provide for their people economically and food-wise. Okay, so they decided with this law that they passed that they were going to kill all the sparrows, all those the four plagues. So the mosquitoes, the flies, the rodents, and the sparrows. Now think about it, right? Many of those things that they call the plagues, it's interdependent. Okay, it's interdependent, and if one faction is lessened or is eradicated, then the other faction will increase, right? So an overabundance of mosquitoes, an overabundance of flies, an overabundance of rodents, things like that, right? They will increase. If you eradicate one, of course it's going to find its way into another one of those factions, and it's going to increase that faction of what they call plagues, right? Okay, so because the sparrows basically control the lethal predators such as locusts, and a big one that we're dealing with, especially in Canada where I am, bed bugs, right? So the sparrows controlled those predators. But with them eradicating all the sparrows, that soon devastated the entire country's crops. Homes and shops were without ability to increase those yields, right? 15 million people died from starvation. Seriously, seriously. When you mess with nature, you're messing with the whole ecosystem, okay? So, Time magazine actually said that it was more than 15 million that died from starvation in those times because of that eradication of sparrows. Times magazine said that 45 to 70 million people died from starvation during that time of eradication. And here's the big thing, okay? So, realizing that they had made a mistake, what they had to do is they had to repopulate or replenish that population of sparrows that they had basically killed off, right? So, what did they do? They imported 250,000 sparrows from where? The Soviet Union. Okay. Now think about this, right? During that period of time when they had eradicated all the sparrows that were keeping the population of the bugs that were eating the crops, the sparrows were basically keeping those locusts and bed bugs and like all those type of creatures, keeping them at a minimum, okay? And during that time, entire crops were rotted, were rotted. And the reason why is because, as I said, the Republic of China wanted to become industrialized, okay? So they were more involved in industrialization. And so there was extensive deforestation that was taking place. When you take your focus off of one area and you put it on another, and this is like, and I'm talking about everywhere. I'm talking about growing crops. I'm talking about even your personal relationships. When you take your focus off one area, it's going to create an imbalance, right? It's going to create an imbalance. And that's exactly what happened. And it didn't help that in 1960 there was a drought, and that drought was followed by floods. So that imbalance, that imbalance in the world, in nature, was felt very, very strongly in many areas. And I like to say this: what happens in one part of the world, it's going to happen in another. Now think about this. When there is earthquakes, okay, when there's earthquakes, and let's say there's an earthquake in China, okay, there's an earthquake in China. Don't think that when those plates are moving, if it breaks apart in one area, or, when an earthquake happens, it basically pushes against another part of the earth and it lifts up, it rises up. Okay, well, there has to be a counterbalance. So on the other side of the world, okay, don't think that that plate movement is not going to affect. And I like to watch this. I like to watch this on the news. When I see or I hear about there being an earthquake in one faction of the world, I usually watch the news to see where that earthquake is going to happen on the opposite spectrum of that, because they're tectonic plates. they're connected. Everything is connected in this world. And so when one part pushes up, there is going to be an effect that's going to, it's a domino effect. It's going to be found in another part of the world. Okay. So I love to watch that. I love to find out about that. But think about it, right? So we're messing with nature. We're depleting certain reserves of even fishes, right? And our world is finely balanced. It is a finely balanced ecosystem, and we're interdependent on each other. And so when you're eradicating certain sections of of the world, of biology, of the animal kingdom, of the species, okay, the ecosystem that is finely tuned with that interdependence, okay? When you're messing with one part of it, it's going to reflect in another. It is. And you know, we kind of see this with what was taking place with the bats, okay? When you mess with nature, it's basically going to be a losing battle. And you're going to be the one that loses. So I just wanted to put this out there. I found it really, really interesting that they would actually eradicate sparrows. Like, seriously. And then have to purchase them from another country. Oh, go figure. I'll see you on the next video. The good Lord be willing. Bye.